everybody. Next up we visit the death trap that is Selhurst Park, where we'll be hosted by Crystal Palace. Kick-off on Sundays at 3 p.m, with no official TV coverage of the game to be found in the UK. Tickets seem to have been moved onto the mobile phone type of platform, which will of course help a hell of a lot with access to an away section that, unless they've changed it over the past 12 months, remains one of the more worrying venues in which one watches football. Still, Croydon Council signed off on the safety licence, didn't they? So it must be okay. Croydon. One can only presume that somewhere in the archives of Sir John Betjeman there lies an unpublished poem called Slough Part 2, which opens along the lines of, "Sorry Slough, I take it all back, I've just been to Croydon." Now, some people suggest that my disdain for the least loved of all London boroughs stems from the fact that said borough was the source of the former Mrs. Percy. This is, of course, absolute nonsense. My dislike of the dump stems from one basic fact, which is this: I've been there. The football club is, of course, well at home there with its hilariously naff ultras, who saw something like that on the telly once and missed the point completely. The club itself seemed to be a bit embarrassed by the group and had locked up their banners. There was some sort of announcement citing safety grounds, something that caused amusement amongst anyone who's endured that away section. The latest dispute hangs over the installation of an LCD advertising hoarding at the place they used to hang their main banner. A spokesman for the group bemoaned the fact that the club had chosen gambling sites and cryptocurrency firms over its own supporters. And your point is? On the pitch there has of course been a change of hand at the tiller. Roy Hodgson's departure had of course been the worst kept secret since Boy George announced that he didn't actually fancy girls. Everything had been put in place in anticipation of the standard announcement that the manager had been relieved of his duties and getting wished all the best for the future, when the poor chap was taken ill during training. After a pause in proceedings of a suitable length, the announcement was amended to delete relieved of his duties and replaced with stepped down, and Hodgson, a CBE, plus sadly a freeman of the London Borough of Croydon, sauntered off into what at the age of 76 must be considered a well-earned retirement. After a few hours under the caretaker management of Paddy McCarthy, which consisted of a 1-1 draw away at Everton, the former Eintracht Frankfurt manager Oliver Glasner was unveiled as manager. Why is it that new managers are always unveiled? I mean, it's not as if there's actually some sort of covering placed over their head to be removed with a triumphant ta-da at the press conference, is it? Especially in this case where everyone knew who was coming in anyway. Perhaps the new football regulator could put in a requirement for some sort of game show entertainment at such press conferences with, say, Lionel Blair and Eunice Stubbs revealing the new identity of the manager through the medium of charades. Hang on a moment, what? Really? Both of them? I'll get back to you on that one. Now, much has been made in some circles of the fact that we've only won 4 games this calendar year. Well, for Palace it's just been the 3. At home to Sheffield United, 3-1. Then following the arrival of Glasner, 3-0 at home to Burnley. This was followed improbably, but highly amusingly, a 1-0 up at Anfield last weekend, a result that made the headlines on Sunday's BBC 9 o'clock news, despite the fact that Arsenal had also lost. I wasn't listening at the time, but here all major BBC radio stations were playing sombre music, and a national day of mourning was about to be announced. The remaining 8 matches since the dawn of 2024 saw them lose 5 and draw 3, which has left them on 33 points from 32 played, which leaves them in 14th place before Saturday's matches. That leaves them 8 points clear of Luton, who are the team in the third from bottom position. So they look safe enough, but who knows what the compliance guys are going to do down there with the points deduction decisions on Forest and Everton ready to be finalised, well, any year now. They did make 2 new signings during the recent window, all of which meant that I had to dig out Daisy from hibernation to do some writing about them. Colombian right-back Daniel Munoz came in from Genk for a reported €8 million. He's one who had an interesting international debut and came on as sub on 56 minutes and disappeared on a red card 1 minute later. Funnily enough, he's also scored at our place, netting the winner in Colombia's 1-0 defeat of Spain at the Olympic Stadium last month. They dropped down a division to pick up Blackburn midfielder Adam Wharton for a fee of £28 million, with another £4 million worth of add-ons potentially waiting in the wings. Wharton picked up his first under-21 cap last month in England's 7-0 drubbing of Luxembourg. I think that's enough of them, and we'll give the wild and wacky world of association football a bit of a break this week, since I've got a couple of games for us to talk about. Well, against Fulham, for 5 minutes it looked as if all the world we were going to demolish them. Then against the run of play they scored, and well, that was pretty much it. We seemed bereft of ideas and always looked likely to get caught in the break. Paquetá seemed to be trying to get his own transfer fee reduced, giving the ball away for both goals and picking up yet another petulant yellow. George Earthy's 3 minutes cameo looked good insofar as that there was suddenly a player in claret and blue who was actually out there actively seeking the ball. However, the head injury was a bit of a shocker, as was the reaction of the Fulham support, who'd clearly only gotten into football a few weeks back and were therefore blissfully unaware of the unwritten football law that applies on these occasions. Admiring their new half-and-half scarves was the order of the day. I did hear a hilarious conversation between a couple of on the Jubilee line post-match. For some reason, the subject matter of the conversation referred to Sutton United, who one of the Fulham support referred to as a small club. Well, I'd be willing to bet that Sutton supporters are sufficiently well versed in football etiquette to not carry on chanting when a player lies unconscious, which in my opinion makes them a much bigger club than Fulham will ever be. Then let's move on to Thursday. As John Cleese said in the film Clockwise, I can take the despair, it's the hope I can't stand. And for the first half of that match, we were by far the better side. And whilst we ran out of steam a bit in the second half, it was overall still a performance of which the players can be fairly proud. Notably, it took a fluky deflection for Leverkusen to preserve their unbeaten status. That and a referee which brought back memories of watching European matches in the 1970s, when half the fun was trying to spot which referees had been paid off. He didn't have a clue, pointing in the wrong direction for free kicks, which invariably were awarded to the visitors. Antonio in particular would have required an opponent to have committed GBH to have been given a free kick. And even then the ref would have probably flourished out a yellow card for bleeding on the pitch. The bizarre number of yellow cards dished out, apparently at random, were waved around in such a vague fashion that nobody seemed to have a clue who the recipients were, including, I suspect, the referee. In fact, I may have received one myself, which, if confirmed, will mean I'm not available for selection for our next European match, whenever that may be. For this weekend, on the injury front, the good news is that Earthy is none the worse for his endeavours last weekend. However, the various concussion protocols will preclude him from taking part in the squad for a while. There will be fitness tests for Phillips, Mavropanos, Aguirre and Areola, whilst Bowen will also be closely monitored for any ill effects from his return from injury on Thursday night. All of which may see us start with a central defensive pairing of Ogbonna and Zuma. Lovely guys both, I'm sure, but, well, a bit lacking in pace. On then to the prediction. A full squad, fit and well, and this would have had 3 points all over it. On the downside, we got injuries in significant areas, and we don't exactly have a great record immediately after tough European encounters. On the whole, then, I think I'll plump for a draw, and I will therefore place the £2.50, with which I was going to bribe Thursday's ref, until somebody clearly beat me to it, on a 2-2 draw. Make it so, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.